Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt. Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile more than 2,000 years ago. The golden sun sets over the pyramids, the air filled with the hum of the city of Alexandria, the jewel of the ancient world. Merchants shout in dozens of languages, philosophers debate in marble courtyards, and ships from Rome, Greece, and Africa crowd the harbour. Amid this bustle lived a woman whose very name still echoes through history, Cleopatra VII Philopator. But who was she really? A cunning seductress, as Roman writers painted her? A tragic heroine of Shakespeare's plays? Or perhaps a brilliant strategist, a scholar, and a leader fighting to preserve Egypt against the unstoppable power of Rome? Tonight, we uncover the story of the last pharaoh of Egypt, a story of power, ambition, love, betrayal, and ultimate tragedy. Cleopatra was born in 69 BCE into the Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals. Though Macedonian Greek by blood, she would be the first of her dynasty to fully embrace Egyptian culture. Unlike her predecessors, who ruled from gilded palaces and rarely spoke the language of their people, Cleopatra studied the tongue of the Egyptians. She grew up in Alexandria, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, with the lighthouse, one of the seven wonders, watching over its bustling port, and the great library preserving the wisdom of centuries. Here, young Cleopatra learned not just politics, but also philosophy, astronomy, medicine, and rhetoric. Some accounts suggest she spoke as many as 9 languages, a rare gift for any ruler of her time. But Egypt in her youth was a kingdom under pressure, famine, economic troubles, and above all, the looming shadow of Rome threatened its independence. From a very young age, Cleopatra knew her future would not be a quiet one. When her father, Ptolemy XII, died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra ascended to the throne alongside her younger brother Ptolemy XIII, whom she was forced to marry by tradition. But the marriage was purely political, and their relationship soon turned into a bitter rivalry. At just 18 years old, Cleopatra found herself in a deadly game of power. Advisors and generals sided with her brother, pushing Cleopatra out of Alexandria. She fled into exile in the deserts of Syria, but she was not defeated. Instead, she gathered an army and plotted her return. The stage was set for her dramatic comeback, a comeback that would forever tie her fate to Rome. In 48 BCE, Rome itself was torn by civil war between Julius Caesar and Pompey. When Pompey fled to Egypt, he was assassinated by Ptolemy XIII's advisors in a misguided attempt to please Caesar. But Caesar, horrified by the brutal act, turned his eyes on Alexandria. Cleopatra saw her chance. In one of the most legendary episodes of her life, she smuggled herself into Caesar's palace. Some say hidden inside a carpet, others claim it was a linen sack. When the carpet was unrolled, the young queen appeared before the most powerful man in Rome. Cleopatra was 21. Caesar was 52. But their alliance was immediate, political, strategic, and personal. Together, they defeated Ptolemy XIII, who drowned in the Nile during battle. Cleopatra reclaimed her throne with Caesar at her side. The union also produced a child, Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. For a time, Egypt enjoyed stability. Cleopatra sailed with Caesar on the Nile, dazzling him with the wealth of her kingdom. But in Rome, whispers grew. Was Cleopatra seeking to rule not only Egypt, but also Rome itself? After Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cleopatra's world shattered. She returned to Egypt, uncertain of her future, but soon she forged a new alliance, this time with Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general and one of the rulers of Rome after his death. Their story would become the stuff of legends. Antony summoned Cleopatra to meet him in Tarsus, and she arrived on a golden barge, sails of purple, oars of silver, dressed as the goddess Isis. Ancient writers say the people believed a goddess had come to earth. Antony was captivated, but their bond was not just romance. Cleopatra needed Rome's protection, Antony needed Egypt's wealth. Together they formed a political and personal partnership, having 3 children. Yet, back in Rome, Octavian, Caesar's heir, painted Antony as a man bewitched by a foreign queen, betraying Rome for her. Propaganda flooded the streets. Cleopatra was a witch, a seductress, a danger to Roman values. The conflict escalated to open war. In 31 BCE, the decisive Battle of Actium took place off the coast of Greece. Antony and Cleopatra's fleet faced Octavian's forces. Despite their numbers, confusion spread. Cleopatra's ships suddenly broke away, and Antony, desperate, followed her retreat. Their fleet collapsed. It was the beginning of the end. Octavian marched into Egypt. In Alexandria, Antony, believing Cleopatra already dead, fell on his own sword. Mortally wounded, he was brought to her chambers, where he died in her arms. Cleopatra, now alone, faced a terrible choice: to be paraded through Rome as a prisoner, or to take control of her own fate. On August 12th, 30 BCE, she ended her life. The traditional story tells of an asp, a venomous Egyptian cobra, hidden in a basket of figs which delivered the fatal bite. Others suggest poison. She was only 39 years old. With her death, the line of the pharaohs ended, and Egypt became a province of Rome. Roman historians, eager to glorify Octavian, turned Cleopatra into a villain, a temptress who destroyed men and nations. Shakespeare later immortalized her as a tragic lover, but the truth is richer. Cleopatra was a polyglot, a scholar, a naval commander, and a ruler who tried against impossible odds to preserve Egypt's independence. She understood diplomacy, propaganda, and the power of image centuries before modern politics. Even today, her story fascinates because it raises timeless questions. How do power and gender shape legacy? Why do myths overshadow reality? And how can one woman's choices still echo across millennia? Cleopatra's life was not simply the tale of a seductress. It was the story of a brilliant ruler caught in the clash of empires who fought until the very end to protect her kingdom. Her name, Cleopatra, means glory of the father, and more than 2,000 years later, her glory remains undimmed.